I'm Larry Menti. We come to you this week from Trenton, and one chair of a committee is red hot because money was put away for farms and open space, and none of the money's been spent. That's coming up next. Also, a canine legend in New Jersey named Liberty, who is helping children. All those stories and much more coming up next, because Jersey matters. Welcome to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Menti. We come to you from Trenton this week. The legislature is out of session, but many of the committees are hard at work, including the Senate Energy and Environment Committee. In a moment, we're going to talk to the chair, but let me set up the topic for a second. There was money set aside for open space. It was voted on and it was passed. So the money is available, but has it gone towards open space? Apparently not. Now we have the chair of the committee, Senator Bob Smith, who's a Democrat from the 17th District, which includes Middlesex and Somerset County. Correct. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for the kind invitation.
Give a little bit of the history of this.
2004, well, the long history is that open space acquisition, farmland preservation, and historic preservation have always been blessed by the voters of the state, but it was done every 4 or 5 years as a bond issue. In 2014, we put on the ballot an amendment to the Constitution of the state, which provided for the 4% that we currently collect from corporate business tax to be allocated toward those three directions. It passed in excess of 60%, close to 65%, so it's a 2-to-1.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. The Constitution's now amended. Well, guess what? None of the money is being spent as the way it's
How much money are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about $77 million a year for the next 3.5 years. And then the corporate business tax amount goes up to 6%, which will make it $125 million a year. And of course, the significance of this is the first time in the history of New Jersey that we have a stable source of funding for open space acquisition, farmland preservation, and historic preservation. So it's really, really important.
This is the kind of thing that makes taxpayers furious.
Crazy.
When they want money to go towards something and it goes towards something else. We've seen that with the transportation fund for years. Now there's money that's supposed to go to open space, so where is the money going?
Well, I've written to the treasurer of the state of New Jersey saying, you haven't spent this money, have you? It's supposed to be constitutionally locked up until the legislature passes an allocation bill. And in the last session that ended in January of this year, the prior 2-year session, we passed legislation after a lot of hearings to decide what the right allocation should be. Unfortunately, it was passed in lame duck, so the governor doesn't have to do anything. You know, at that time, he was flying in and out of New Jersey, making an occasional guest appearance, never signed the bill, so that's what's called a pocket veto. So what we've done is to make this a top priority in this session, and that same bill is now out of the Senate, it's now out of the Assembly, it's sitting on the governor's desk. So one of the reasons I want to be here is I would like to ask all of your listeners to write to Governor Christie at the State House Trenton and say, Governor, get off your tuchus and sign this bill already.
What is your gut on this? Why isn't he?
Don't know. When he does a pocket veto, he never has to give an explanation. But when you pass a bill in the rest of the session, the governor has a certain time to act, and if he vetoes or conditionally vetoes a bill, he has to give reasons.
You know what the cynic in me says, and I'm sure a lot of the viewers are thinking the same thing. Well, there's $77 million. Right. If I wait long enough, I can take that money and spend it on something else.
Yeah. That would be an impeachable offense. That would be a crime. You can't violate your own state's constitution.
Have they tried to take some of that money?
Yes. They tried in last year's budget to take $20 million of it to pay for salaries in the Department of Environmental Protection. The legislature stopped it. They took it out of the budget. And by the way, the governor is proposing the same thing this year, and I'm hoping that it gets cut out again. But the important thing is the money from last year should have been lockboxed someplace, that's $77 million, and the money for this year should be lockboxed until we pass that allocation bill, and he now has the opportunity to sign it. And, you know, listen, I'm always don't want to be a cynic if I can help it. Hopefully he's going to sign it, but it would help if all your listeners and viewers would write to the governor and say, already, Governor, let's sign the allocation bill so we can acquire open space and farmland preservation and historic preservation.
Well, if they're going to write, let them know what they're writing about. Where would this money go? How would it be used? How would it benefit the community?
Well, farmland preservation is designed to buy the development rights on farms in the Garden State. We are the Garden State, and we literally have about 1 million acres of beautiful farms. I mean, people normally think of us as exit 13 or 14 on the turnpike, but the truth is we are a real Garden State and a real producer of agriculture. We want our farmers to stay farming. So if we buy the development rights, it stays as a farm. So that's farmland preservation. Open space preservation, kind of the same thing. And part of that is dedicated toward getting homes and people out of harm's way. We have a lot of flood-prone properties in New Jersey, so this would clean up some of that problem, but also there are forests and meadows and whatever where we'd like to preserve open space. And finally, there's a 5% allocation to historic preservation. New Jersey really is the crossroads of the revolution. We have a lot of historic sites, and we need every year to try and keep some of our history preserved. So that's where the money goes. The address that they should send their letter to is Governor Christie, State House, Trenton, New Jersey.
Email?
The amount? What's that?
An email, would that help?
I don't have the governor's email. I'm sure if they go on their internet,
they can Google it. They'll be able to find it. I gave you the cynic on one side. Let me give you the cynic on the other side of this issue. But before I do, is the legislature still in unison? Is it still overwhelmingly supportive of this?
Yeah, we repassed the bill in both houses. It sits right now on the governor's desk.
And is your fear that he will?
My fear is that he's going to either veto it or conditionally veto it.
Why would he veto it if the money's there? Why exactly?
He would, well, I think more likely he would conditionally veto it. And the reason he'd conditionally veto it is that he wants to take some of the money and use it for salaries in the current
You're
budget.
telling me that's impeachable?
If you don't follow the Constitution, it is, and we already have an opinion from the Office of Legislative Services that his attempt to use it for those purposes is unconstitutional. And by the way, we're also encouraging some of the environmental groups to sue because what the governor is trying to do is absolutely unconstitutional.
Is that a false threat? I mean, would you go through with impeachment proceedings if he tries to take that money?
Well, what I always believe in is layer your responses. So the first one right now, we're doing a campaign where we're getting citizens involved and writing to the governor's office. The next thing that happens is taking anything that he puts in the budget that's an improper use of the money out of the budget. And then the third thing that happens, if he vetoes it, we would put it back in the legislature for an override. And this might be the one time that Republicans join on because it's that important to the citizens of the state. And then finally, litigation, where you go into court. When you file that the government is not acting properly, it goes to Mercer County, the Mercer County assignment judge, a lady named Mary Jacobson, very independent judge, and she will rule what the Constitution is, I believe.
Let me just give you, do you think there are some citizens, this is the other cynical side, there's some citizens that go, you know, farm's nice, open space is nice, but we're cash strapped, that's $77 million, maybe we need that for something else.
It passed 2-1. 60+%.
But you're saying
no, not in the legislature. On the ballot in 2014, the Constitution was amended by the public voting more than 2-1 to do this. They want farmland preservation, they want open space preservation, they want historic preservation.
When we come back, we'll continue our conversation. We're going to change topics, though. We're going to talk about Liberty State Park and how New Jersey could possibly make some money from it when Jersey Matters continues.